President, please be seated. The court is now back in session, and the chamber gives the floor back to the international co-prosecutor to resume the questioning. You may now proceed.
Sir, on Thursday, we started talking and it was read to you something you had told to DC Cam about before you took the trip with Sao Pim, the final trip when he attempted to go to Phnom Penh, that he went and he met with Hang Samrin. And on page in English 013-53388, in Khmer 013-40585, and in French at 013-45523. You said that Sao Pim told Hang Samrin, he said he was going to Phnom Penh to sort things out. He said that I'm going to Phnom Penh. If I disappear for just 1 week, you, Rin, go into the forest, gather however many there are left, and go into the forest to struggle. So I have a couple of questions for you. What did you mean when you said that what did Sao Pim mean when he said he wanted to sort things out? What did you understand him to mean when he said he was going to Phnom Penh to sort things out?
I heard that he was sent to solve some issues in Phnom Penh with the senior leadership. I, at the time, did not know his internal affairs.
He said in that, what you told DC Cam, what I just read, you said, Sao Pim, you quoted him as saying, gather however many there are left. Do you know what he meant when he said however many there are left? Was he referring to, what was he referring to?
They were those who were spared from the arrests. These people were gathered up, to my understanding. To my understanding, they were gathered up to engage in the resistance movement.
So when you say those who were spared, are you talking about East Zone cadre who had not been arrested by Center or Southwest forces?
That is correct. That's all.
So now I understand that you did go with him on this trip to Phnom Penh. Can you tell us, in addition to yourself and Sao Pim, how many others did he bring with him?
I went with others who were from my group. We went together with him.
Well, you said Sao Pim controlled several divisions and that there were district and zone level forces. How many combatants went with him on that trip? Besides you, how many other armed individuals?
I do not know about that. If you ask me this question, and I cannot figure out. I do not really know.
សូមចប់
That's all I can say.
Sir, I'm a little confused because when you spoke to DC Cam last year, you told them this, and this is on the next page from the one I quoted. You were asked how many persons were there who you say went to Phnom Penh, and you said 9 persons, including him, my group, 2 drivers, 1 cook, himself, and however many my group was, altogether 9 persons. Is that correct, what you told DC Cam last year?
បាទ
Yes, that is what I told the DC camp. I stand by that statement. 9 of us went with him, and that number includes the drivers.
Did Sao Pim indicate to you who he wanted to speak to? Did you ever hear him say who it was in Phnom Penh he planned to talk to?
He did not tell me who he would meet. I stopped at Wat Unalam, where I arrested, and he continued his trip. And I did not know whether or not he reached his destination at the time.
Well, Mr. Witness, you told DC Cam in great detail about what happened on that trip to you and to Sao Pim. So I'd like you, in your own words, to tell the judges now we're very interested in knowing what you saw and heard on that trip and the events that transpired. You've indicated in the answer I just read that you left, there were 9 of you in two vehicles. Where did you go? Please tell the judges, where did you go and what happened?
I am confused with your question, and I do not really get your question. I was told that I had to go to Phnom Penh, and for other issues, it is beyond my understanding. President. The question is meant to seek your clarification and description when you left Prey Vang for Phnom Penh with Sao Pim. So the co-prosecutor wants you to give a description, particular, for example, modes of your transportation, and what did you see and observe at the time? Do you understand that, Mr. Witness? Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your clarification. I went up to Phnom Penh using a shortcut or small roads, and there were bridges made out of palm trees. I went through difficult periods on the way to Phnom Penh. President, when did you leave Prey Vang with Sao Pim? And you stated that you were crossing the bridges made out of palm trees before you reach Ariksat. So which roads did you use at the time? You have testified in the previous case file. Do you understand my question? The question, I believe, is clear to you. Particularly, the question is focusing on your trip from Prey Veng to Araikasat. Witness, I left Prey Veng and I passed Prey Kla village and Prey Pneu. I, at one particular time, reached Prey Tamia. Frankly, at the time, I did not know the directions very well, and I did not know the names of some location. All I know is that I arrived at Araikasat. I left Prey Veng northward to Svai Anto, Prey Kla and Prey Pneu. We used a lot of roads, and I at the time did not know clearly the geographic areas. I was told that I arrived at Araikasat or Prey Tamia. At one point in time, I was told that I passed Sniper. That is all I know.
Okay, sir. When you arrived at Angkre Sat, forgive my pronunciation, were you still with Sao Pim and the other 7 people? Was it still the 9 of you together?
Yes. 9 of us. There were 9 of us when we arrived at Araikasat. That's all.
You arrived at Araikasat. Did you spend the night there?
Correct. We spent almost a night there, and then at 2 or 3 o'clock there was an incident.
Please explain what happened.
At the scene of the incident, let me describe it for you. We arrived at a house in a farm or plantation full of banana trees and tobacco plants. And vegetables were namely pumpkins and winter melon were grown at some areas. We rested there, and it was at 2 or 3 o'clock when an incident happened. We were surrounded and guns were fired at us. He was on the steel house, and he came down and asked what happened, and I told him that fires were shot at us by some soldiers, and we at the time counter fires. I went to tell him, and he told me to tell others to stop firing guns and rifles. We then tried to find routes to leave. There was a person in the farm or plantation knowing the way to get out of that house. We could leave about 30 or 40 meters. Then the fires were shot at us again. We had to run, and we had to gather forces to counter the attack. It was at that point in time when I departed from him. I was on a motorboat. The engine was started by me. I I was in the boat waiting for him, and some other people together with him on the land were running. I was waiting in the boat, but in no way. Then I tried to find a place to rest. I thought at the time I would die because I was surrounded by others. I resisted with them. I tried to run away in order to save my life. And then I jumped into the lake, to a lake, and I remained staying under the water raisins. I was trying my best to swim to another side of the lake. Then I left for my birthplace. I stayed in the water from time to time, and I tried my best to hide in the water to avoid the gunfires. I knew at the time that I was surrounded by them, so I took a risk running and fleeing. Then I arrived at a house, hiding myself there. After a while, I left that house and hid myself behind a water tank, a big water pot. Those people suspected that I was hiding in the house, so they were surrounding that house. Later on, I arrived at Vihiesur, where I was arrested, and I was arrested at the time, as I said. They wanted to kill me, but they first kept me, and they made a report that there was a person from the southwest, running from the southwest. At the time, everyone knew that a person from the southwest was arrested. There were some people knowing me, so I was released and placed in a district office. At the time, the southwest zone people were approaching that Vihiesur district, so I took risks running again and fleeing that location. It was a long journey that I had to flee. I have already told about that experience in the statement. This is a brief summary from me.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, I do need some details. I want to go back to when you were at Akresat. First of all, was that location where you spent the night near a river?
It was not close to a river. It was about 100 meters from the river where I started the boat's engine. It was raining and very dark that night. I was disoriented at the time. I had to walk, spend time walking quite a long way as well at the time.
When you were with Sao Pim and you stopped to spend the night at Akresat, was that just across the river from Phnom Penh?
I was at Araikesat, and I did not cross to the other side of the river. I stayed in a house in a plantation or farm.
My question was, when you were with Sao Pim and you stopped, Sao Pim stopped at Akre Sat for the night, was that a location just across the river from Phnom Penh where you could see the royal palace?
Yes, it was on another side of the river. I could see the royal palace. So it was on another side of the river, the place where I stopped.
And did some people come to your location and give you news, give your group news about what was happening inside Phnom Penh at that time?
People were fleeing. People from different units were fleeing. It was chaotic at the time. Some people had been arrested, and I was told by some about the incident.
Well, these arrests in the city, who did you hear? Who was being arrested?
I do not know who were arrested, but those who worked and were linked to the East Zone were all arrested. That's all I can say.
Now, while you were there, did Sao Pim attempt to send any messages into the city?
Yes, 2 times he sent messages on 2 occasions to Phnom Penh. Messages were sent by his messengers, but he received no news back.
Who did he ask the courier to take the message to?
He asked the couriers to the messenger units in Phnom Penh to forward those messages. I do not know where those messages would be further sent to.
Well, last year to DC Cam, you said at page, in English, 013, 53393, in Khmer, 013, 40588, and in French at 013, 45525. However, when he arrived there, he wrote a letter to be taken into Phnom Penh, giving it to a courier there and saying we were to wait for a letter to be brought back. And as it happened, the courier to take the letter to Pol Pot, and so one was chased back. He did another letter. They chased that person back too. So does that refresh your recollection, what you said to DC Cam last year, that the letters were to Pol Pot?
It is sure that his messages must have been sent to Pol Pot, the cadre in Phnom Penh.
And do you remember what was written in the letters.
How could I know the detail in the letters? No one could be able to see the content of those letters.
Sir, last year to DC Cam, on the same page, you said this. You were asked about the letters, and you were asked, he said that he had arrived at Acre Sat and to have the comrades come get him. And you said, excuse me, you were asked what was written in the letters. And you said, in the letters he wrote, he had now arrived in Acre Sat. Quote, have the comrades come get me. I have now arrived in Acre Sat, having come via shortcut, not via the ferry route. Unquote. That was what I knew. I listened to his clerk writing that, and he told me. So now do you recall, sir, that you listened to the clerk as Sao Pim dictated it, and that he told you that?
It confuses me, the question you have just put. It is repetitive. You know about it, and you still dig out what I know. So I'm confused, Mr. President. And this is the court proceedings to seek the truth from you. The court and chamber is very cautious. Parties are very careful in selecting questions to be put to witnesses. And this is not repetitive. The question is meant to explore what really happened at the time. The question is meant for the public to be well informed of what happened, and also it is for those who follow the court proceedings. This is meant for the consideration of the public in general, to avoid the subjective conclusion that the court is not fair. There are different types of questions, general questions, descriptive questions, and specific ones. Please try your best to respond to the questions. And if you do not really understand clearly the question, you can ask the questioner to put them again.
So, sir, all that we're interested in is the truth. What I read to you is what is recorded as your words last year. There you said that after listening to the clerk writing that, and he told you that you remembered those words, that Sao Pim had said, have the comrades come get me. I have now arrived in Acre Sat. Do you remember that now? Is that what was written?
He arrived at that location and he wanted to enter Phnom Penh, and what you said is what he wanted to convey to.
Thank you. Now you've told us what happened to you when a group attacked your location at Acre Sat. Do you know who those forces were? Do you know what units they belong to?
I did not know who they belong to, because they all dressed the same uniform and they were all armed, but I had no idea which units or division they came from.
Thank you. Now, you've told us what happened to you. You said you went there with Sao Pim and 7 others. So first, the 7 other people that were on that trip with you and arrived at Akresat. Do you know what happened to them? Did you ever see them again?
I have never met them again. Because when I went down to start the engine of the engine boat, we were separated from each other and I have never seen them again.
And what about Sao Pim? What happened to him as far as you know?
Only when I was arrested at Vihiasur, the chief of Vihiasur district told me that Sao Pim was still alive. And he already reached Sri Santo district.
Where was the last time you saw Sao Pim yourself? Was it in Akresat or somewhere else during the escape?
I got separated from him during the night that the incident took place, and I heard about him during the time I was traveling.
About how many days later was that?
I cannot recall how many days was it, but it was, from my estimation, it was around 10 days that I received the news that he was arrested or he was killed. I spent about half months during the journey that I made.
And what did you hear about what happened to Sao Pim?
I did not hear any important story. Only when I arrived, I heard people telling me that he killed himself when he was besieging by the force.
And what happened to his body? Did you ever hear anything about that?
I did not witness his dead body myself. I received the news about his incident when I was traveling along the road, and the villagers told me that he killed himself when he was surrounded by the force.
Well, I asked you about the body. What you had said last year to DC Cam, and this is at Khmer 013-40597, in French 013-45534, and in English 013-53407. You were asked, so did Sao Pim definitely die in the district office at Prak Pau? And you said, in the district office there in Prak Pau. You said it was Sri Santor district. And then you said it was there, he was killed there. And 2 or 3 days later, the next day or the day after, I left their place. I walked, and someone said they scooped out his head and intestines and inserted ice to transport him, putting him on a horse cart to transport him around, shouting, telling the citizenry about it. Do you remember hearing that Sao Pim's body was put on a horse cart and taken around the Isong?
Yes, I heard about it, but I did not witness it with my own eyes. It was villagers who told me about that. Only those villagers were well aware of that. For me, I only heard about it, and I would like to confirm that I did not witness it with my own eyes.
Thank you. That's very clear. That's good of you to clarify that. Sir, when you were working for Sao Pim, before this incident that led to his death in the previous years, when you went to Phnom Penh with him, where did you go? Where in Phnom Penh?
As I told you earlier, that I did not went anywhere freely. I went to only a place at Onalaum Pagoda.
Pim go to hold for any meetings? Where did you take him?
As I told you earlier, that I arrived and stay only at Wat Onalaum or Onalaum Pagoda, and as to where he went next for meetings, I had no idea.
Well, you seem to have a good idea last year. When you spoke to DC Cam, they asked you about this, and this is at English 01353345, in French 013-45496, and in Khmer 013-40558. You were asked, what did he go to Phnom Penh to do? You said he went for meetings. He attended meetings at the palace, but about which we did not know anything. When he went to the palace, I stayed at the courier office at Wat Unalum Pagoda. Where did he attend the meetings? He went into the palace. And then you said later, it was there I went into that courier office, that's Wat Unalum Pagoda, to have a rest. When it was time to leave, he sometimes came as far as Wat Unalum Pagoda. Somebody's vehicle came and brought him. Pol Pot's vehicle came into the entrance. So does that refresh your recollection? Is what you said last year to DC Cam true? That you took Sao Pim to the palace for meetings?
Yes, I arrived at only a place where Onalam's wall border with the royal palace wall, and that's the place where I could not go further.
Did you see any of the leaders that you recognize going into that palace? Besides Sao Pim, do you know who else was there?
No, I did not see anyone else. When I arrived at the place where the pagoda's wall bordered with the royal palace wall, I stopped at that particular place.
Sometimes did Sao Pim spend the night and you returned to the East Zone?
Yes, there were occasions when this happened. I had that experience once when I took him, and then I had to return back to the province. He was there for 4 or 5 days. That's all for my answer.
Did you ever take Sao Pim to any large meetings where there were many, many people?
No, I never accompanied him to a large meeting. That's all for my answer.
In the East Zone, did Sao Pim, when you were with him, ever stop and speak to groups of cadre or just speak to large groups of villagers?
Yes, sometimes he stopped along the way to have a chat with people.
And what kinds of things would Sao Pim say? Did he talk about the revolution?
I saw him asking them about their health condition and about their work conditions, because at that time people were encouraged to work hard to increase the production, and I did not hear him talking about anything else.
Did he tell people that Angkar would provide for them? They worked hard, Angkar would take care of them? Yes, that particular point was mentioned at every places, that if we worked hard, we would achieve prosperity and we would have enough food to eat. So such particular topic was raised at every meetings. So at these meetings, did Sao Pim encourage people to be loyal to Angkar?
I did not hear him ever talking about that. Those who were with him would be well aware of the issues of loyalty. Whether he pushed them to be loyal or not, I never heard him saying so. That's all for my answer.
Well, sir, you said that you were a distant relative of Sao Pim and one of just a handful of direct bodyguards that he traveled with. Did Sao Pim ever try to enlist you in any kind of plot against the Khmer Rouge leadership?
No, he never did it to us because we were quite young. He did not talk about politics to us. He only encouraged us to study hard. We were still young to be taught politics.
When you were with him, did Sao Pim travel to China? I'm not asking if you went to China, but do you know if during the years that you were with Sao Pim, 76, 77, and the beginning of 78, did he ever travel to China?
When I was with him, he did not go there, but perhaps he went there before I came to live with him. Because I started to live with him at the latter part.
Did Sao Pim have some kind of skin problem?
Yes, he had itchy skin.
Did Sao Pim ever speak about the threat from the Vietnamese in any of the meetings, or to you or to you or the others, or to the public?
I was not aware of it.
In January 1978, Vietnamese forces withdrew from Cambodia after having entered the country. Were there celebrations in the East Zone for that you recall?
I was not aware of it because I was not there yet at that time.
Sir, actually I was talking about January 78, so you were there, but let me move on. Did Sao Pim ever meet with chiefs of the sector?
Yes, he met them, but I did not know who they were. He met many of them, but I did not know who they were and what positions they held.
Do you recall what it was, what kind of information or instructions he conveyed to them?
I did not know clearly about it because I was guarding outside while he was meeting with those cadres. They held a meeting inside, and I could not say what they were discussing during those meetings because I was guarding outside.
Let me see if I can refresh your recollection. Last year, to DC Cam, at page English 013533368, Khmer 013-405-72, French 013-45510. You said about Sao Pim, he went to meetings with the sector chiefs, and once in the meetings, he laid them the plan laid down by the upper level, that they were to do things according to the upper level's plan. Do you recall in general Sao Pim telling cadre sector chiefs or district chiefs that they must implement the upper level's plan?
During that regime, everyone, regardless of which units or ministry they belong to, they had to fulfill or carry out the order or plan given to them by the upper echelon.
Thank you. You made one interesting comment I'd like you to explain in your DC Cam interview last year. And this is at page in English 013-53377, Khmer 013-4078, and French 013-45516. Sir, what you said last year is that in those districts where there was plenty and chiefs ran things laxly, they let there be enough to eat one's fill. In those districts where they were minded to follow pure theory and economize, there would be death. Can you explain what you mean by the districts where they would follow the pure theory, where there would be death?
I did not hear about it. But usually, if the plan was given, the implementation was not 100% like that. And usually only when there was a plan or order given from above, and then people at the lower level would implement it.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Are you saying that if people the local cadre fully followed the Khmer Rouge theories, then there would be death? If they were more lax in following it, the people could get enough to eat?
I never heard about it. I did not know about it. And the reason I did not know about it because I did not hear about it.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm trying to have you explain your words. Let me ask you about another thing you said last year to DC Cam. It's on the same page. You said, I can tell you that back in that period, merely at the sight of someone on a motorbike, a big shot or small, the peasants were scared. No matter how tired they were from working, they kept on working. They were afraid of such others in that period, very afraid. When you say people on a motorbike, did you mean that meant that they were cadre, that they had some kind of role in the Khmer Rouge hierarchy if they could ride a motorbike?
Villagers or people at that time were so fearful when they saw anyone on riding motorbike or vehicle, because ordinary people possessed only very simple tools like spades, hoes. They did not possess anything important. So when they saw people with those kind of modern equipments, they were so frightened of them.
Okay, thank you. One question. Did Pol Pot visit the East Zone when you were there?
Yes, there were many cadres making visit to the area, but I did not know them all. Only when people who were familiar with them told me that I recognized them.
Do you recall at least one visit by Pol Pot?
Yes, there were cadres making visit to the area, but I cannot recall when those visits took place.
Do you recall?
President, the question was specifically about Pol Pot's visit, not about other cadres. The question was whether you knew that Pol Pot made the visit to the zone at that time, and whether you saw Pol Pot went to work at the East Zone. The question was specific about Pol Pot's visit, not about others. Witness, yes, he went there.
Was there a big ceremony to welcome him?
At that time, ceremonies were organized. Usually when there were visitors, there were some organizations such as the preparation of food.
And was Sao Pim there to greet Pol Pot?
Yes, he did.
I want to go back for a moment to Sao Pim's trip to Phnom Penh. You said to sort things out. The witness upcoming that counsel referred to last week, TCW 1070, said the following, and this is at ERN 013-54203, in Khmer 013-40501, and in French 013-48544. This witness quoted Sao Pim as saying, quote, "I have done nothing wrong, and I will go straight to the place where I can get right to the bottom of this." He was asked what location was Sao Pim going to, and he said, a POTS location, but he did not reach it. He said he would keep going until he got to the bottom of things, that he had done nothing wrong. And then on the next page, the witness was asked about Sao Pim. The question was he not getting ready, preparing to escape? And the witness answered, he was unwilling to escape. But if he had wanted to evade, he would have been able to do so, but he was unwilling to escape. He was asked, he said he had done nothing wrong? He said, yes, nothing wrong whatsoever. So what was the matter? Do you recall that being Sao Pim's attitude at the time he went to Phnom Penh? that he wanted to see Pol Pot because he had done nothing wrong?
You asked me about our preparation for the journey to Phnom Penh. He said that he would go to sort things out. And that was the time when we were still traveling and arrived at Prey Veng.
When Sao Pim, before that trip to Phnom Penh, had Sao Pim himself arrested Eastern Zone cadre to send to the center? Was he cooperating with arrests in the early stages?
President, please hold on, Mr. Witness, and the floor is given to Counsel Victor Gope.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I object to this question because the implication is that Sao Pim was merely chief of the East Zone, and that the center was some other institution or were other people. Sao Pim himself was most likely member of the Standing Committee. We have now new Vietnamese documents which indicate that. He was a president of the State Presidium. He was very much himself a member of the center. So making this artificial distinction between the East Zone and the center is in this particular respect incorrect.
Your Honors, that was not my implication. I think it's important to clarify that absolutely we agree with counsel, and there's if there's a formal stipulation we can enter into it, we're happy to do so. Sao Pim was part of the Standing Committee. He was a very, very important part of the center. That's not disputed by us. My question to him was whether he was cooperating with the arrests of the East Zone, which is part of the center policy. I certainly was not meaning to imply that Sao Pim himself wasn't working right along with Pol Pot, Nun Chia, Khieu Samphan, Ru Nhiem. They all were working together. That's our position.
President, the question can be asked. Therefore, the objection by Nun Chia's defense team is overruled. Mr. Witness, please give your answer to the question put to you by the co-prosecutor. Witness, I did not know much about that affairs. Because I knew so little about it, I could not give you any answer. I can give answers only when I was aware.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm curious what you heard from other cadre who worked in the East Zone. On the other side of the country, you were read from an interview, E3/10665, that's purportedly Tuat Tuan, the adopted son of Ru Nhiem. And he says about Ru Nhiem that he was furious with Ru Nhiem. Excuse me, this is at 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 51 seconds. These are time marked. I am furious with him. He should not do, Chief Idea, feel ashamed. If he stood up and did resistance, there wouldn't be millions of people killed. If he did the resistance, he would not have arrested his fellow soldiers, my subordinates, whom I included as the party members. Did you ever hear that from other East Zone cadre, that Sao Pim should have resisted instead of cooperating in the early arrests of East Zone cadre?
I didn't hear any ERN numbers. I'd be happy to have them so that I can read along, but my recollection is that he speaks about Runim arrests in the northwest zone and not so much about arrests in the east zone.
Yes, I don't know if I wasn't clear. I clearly said, I gave the timestamp, as counsel did the other day for this. It's timestamped, so it's more accurate than a page number. And I gave the E3 number 10665. And clearly, I made it clear, this is Runim on the east zone. I'm asking if the same thing, if he ever heard something similar, Runim from the northwest zone, I'm asking him if he heard anything similar in the east.
There's actually multiple tapes and multiple time references, so we really need an ERN rather than a time indication, because I believe, speaking by heart, that there's about 6 different tapes with each time their own time indications.
Your Honor, I believe there are 2 tapes that Lemkin provided of this witness only. And the ERN in English is 011-56815. Mr. Witness, did you hear anything similar complaints from East Zone cadre that Sao Pim had cooperated with the early arrests?
No, I never heard about it. President, thank you, International Co-Prosecutor. It is now convenient time for lunch break. The chamber will take a break from now until 1:30. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting room reserved for witnesses and civil party during the break time, and invite him back to the courtroom at 1:30. Security personnel are instructed to bring Khieu Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and bring him back to the courtroom before 1:30. The court is now in recess.